Welcome to Kangaroo Island. Woo! That was not scripted. Let's try again and we'll see if we summon another one. Welcome to Kangaroo Island, off the coast of mainland South Australia, Australia's third largest island, where the beaches are pristine, the sky is blue, the water is blue.
Join us for the next 6 days as we see incredible wildlife and taste amazing locally produced food and drink. Welcome to Kangaroo Island. We're Andrew and Leonie, and we like to cruise and travel.
Join us on our travels all over the world as we review a range of cruises, cruise lines, land tours, all sorts of shore excursions, and a range of hotels and resort holidays.
And remember to like and subscribe.
Now, Andrew,
Yep.
This episode's a bit of a departure, something different for this channel, not a cruise either, although we did do a tiny cruise, a ferry actually, to get there. In a moment of madness, we bought this little beauty earlier this year and took her to Kangaroo Island, South Australia. First of all, meet Vandy. That's the name we compromised on, being a combo of our names, Andrew and Leonie, with a V for the van element. She's a Jayco Conquest 25-3, meaning she's about 25 feet long, 8 metres long, and that's as technical as I get.
We were taking Vandy on her maiden trip to Queensland, but a tropical cyclone, Cyclone Alfred, got in the way. So literally at the last minute, we drove west rather than north, and then it ended up having a few days somewhere we had never been before, Kangaroo Island in South Australia. This episode is not so much about motorhoming or tips as to what to do or not what to do. We might do that down the track, so let us know if you're interested. Rather, this video is about Kangaroo Island, or KI as the locals call it.
First of all, why the name? Why is it called Kangaroo Island? It was named by explorer Matthew Flinders in 1802 after the huge number of kangaroos he saw there. I can testify that more than 220 years later, there are more kangaroos in the wild on KI than I've ever seen anywhere else in Australia. Way more. So, how do you get there?
It's only an hour and a half drive from Adelaide, plus a 45-minute ferry ride. Close to Adelaide, but a world away. There's a Sea-Link car ferry that goes several times a day. The journey is about 45 minutes. Word of advice here, do what we didn't do and plan ahead. Dynamic pricing is at play. We booked last minute and paid an eye-watering $700 for the return journey for ourselves and our 8-metre motorhome.
Ouch.
Another warning, until new drive-on, drive-off ferries arrive later in 2025, you actually have to reverse your car or van onto the ferry at both ends, and they squash you in with little room to spare. We'll put some photos up to give you an idea, so let's just say that taking your van or motorhome is not for the faint-hearted.
No, I was glad it was you and not me. I think I would have said, "Hey, can someone do this?" So let's get to the nitty-gritty. Andrew, what do you think of Kangaroo Island?
Look, I loved it. I've never seen so much wildlife anywhere in Australia. I'm a kangaroo lover for sure, and that's what we saw on Kangaroo Island. That was the highlight for me, but there was amazing beaches too, and a vibrant local makers scene for produce, beer, wines and spirits.
The wildlife was out of this world. The first morning of our holiday, we woke up early. We walked 2 minutes down to the beach. You were fishing.
Yep.
I was mesmerised by the sunrise and the orange light, and I thought, something there in the water, and I looked a bit harder and a bit harder, and it was dolphins. So I was swimming and gracefully frolicking like this in front of me. 10 or so of them. It was divine.
Then the last morning of our trip, we walked back to the beach.
Same beach.
And as we were chatting and filming for this episode, actually, a kangaroo jumped out of the salt bush on the sand and bounded right past us. Kangaroos on the beach. What a place.
Yeah, that was amazing. Luckily, we had the GoPro. For both of us, the highlight of KI was the wildlife. So let's talk about that first. in no water and in the wild just through the course of our travels. We saw pods of dolphins, I've mentioned that, sea lions, including one suckling from mum, which was a privilege to see, kangaroos galore, wallabies, echidnas, beautiful striking red-tailed black cockatoos, which are endangered and native to KI, and they call them glossies. A gorgeous bird called the supreme blue wren that has electric blue colouring. Yeah, electric blue. A unique variety of bees as well, but for us, the ultimate were the kangaroos.
And we saw them all day, every day.
Continuing with the kangaroos, sorry if you don't like kangaroos. Fun fact, they're endemic to KI, which means they're found nowhere else in the world. There are subspecies of the western grey kangaroo, smaller, stockier, and their fur is a darker brown, almost black colour.
They're quite dark. We saw most of these animals in the wild, just driving along the road. We'd see them, pull over and just marvel. Make sure you go to Seal Bay, where there is a sea lion colony and a lot of information with a boardwalk and guided tours. Also a must visit is the Kangaroo Island Wildlife Park. We had the treat of all treats there, which is actually patting koalas and feeding kangaroos. We were lucky arriving at the wildlife park just in time for the koala experience. They let us go inside the gate and we were allowed to pat the soft and almost like teddy bear koalas.
They were.
That's a pretty rare experience.
Yep. For the princely sum of $3 for a bag of food, we then got to feed the roaming wallabies and kangaroos, and they came up to us sort of gently pouring like this for food like our dogs would do. It was so cute. There were other birds and animals at the KI Wildlife Park too, including quokkas. I'd only ever seen them once before at Rottnest Island in Western Australia, so that was a treat. And there were dingoes. I don't love dingoes so much, but they're Australian wild dogs and a treat to see them as well.
Experience.
Cool, yeah.
Other than the wildlife, there's a lot more to do on Kangaroo Island. Firstly, the beaches. They are universally stunning beaches. They're often wild, windswept, and they're both foreboding and inviting in equal measure. They are undeveloped and unspoilt with long stretches of white sand and pristine sand dunes. Some of our favourites were Hog Bay, Pennington Bay and Vavon Bay. At Pennington Bay, there was not a soul around. We marvelled at the sand with only our footprints in it and at the water, which was the palest bluey-green colour.
But you don't have to be a beach person to enjoy KI. We are beach people, not everybody is. There's a vibrant local makers scene too. Over a few days we visited a brewery, a winery, a gin distillery, bit of a theme, a eucalyptus oil distillery and a bee farm. The bee story is unique. Ligurian bees were brought to KI from Italy in 1884 and KI was declared a bee sanctuary in 1885, so it's the oldest bee sanctuary in the world. Even today, it's prohibited to bring in honey or bees to KI. Being protected from disease and breeding with other types of bees, the Kangaroo Island Ligurian bee is the purest strain of Ligurian bee in the world.
Fun fact.
A long way from Italy.
Kangaroo Island Spirits was founded on KI in 2006 and is Australia's first dedicated gin distillery. We had pizza and calamari from the resident food truck with a gin paddle. You can choose tonic water or mineral water with your paddle. We learned that tonic has a stronger taste and can dull the flavour of the gin, but we still opted for the tonic. We bought a bottle of our favourite gin to bring home. We also visited Kangaroo Island Brewery. And whilst there, we had some tastings. We bought some beer to bring home with us in the motorhome. Luckily, we've got lots of storage in that motorhome because we did fill it on that trip with lots of goodies.
We did. I don't know if that was good or bad, but yeah, we did. Continuing with the alcohol theme, we visited Foss Cape Winery, the largest winery on Kangaroo Island, and we had another paddle. This time,
like a paddle.
This time it was a flight of 4 different wines. You could choose the whites, the reds, or a mixed taster, where you chose for the 4 wines that you want to taste. We had lunch there with our paddle on a gorgeous outdoor terrace overlooking the vines. The vineyard's totally off-grid, relying on solar panels to generate 100% of the electricity used on the farm. The aim is a sustainable vineyard. It was a beautiful spot and we spent a very relaxing afternoon chatting with our fellow travellers.
Did you have a favourite wine?
Yeah. I like the fact that I could choose the ones I was going to taste, but not particularly a favourite. I think you did.
Yeah, I like the fortified Shiraz, and we might have bought a couple of boxes to put in the motorhome to bring home.
Under bed storage. Don't know if it's a gift or not.
Now, what about you, Leonie?
Look, I just loved the whole experience. It was picturesque, but the charcuterie board was a standout, made with love, work of art, tasted fantastic. It was a really special afternoon.
Yeah, it was good. It was a good spot. Next up was Emu Ridge Eucalyptus Oil Distillery or Farm. We could have had a paddle there too, this time of cider, not eucalyptus oil, but I think we'd had enough of the paddle, so we opted for some cappuccinos, and we actually really delved into the story of how eucalyptus oil is made.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
The eucalyptus oil story is an absolute cracker. Originally started in the early 1900s, eucalyptus oil from Kangaroo Island was sold all over the world. It was hard, toiling, back-breaking stuff, but helped build and sustain Kangaroo Island for decades. The Australian eucalyptus oil industry wound down and closed in the 1950s, surpassed by the needs of the expanding and at the time more profitable sheep industry. Then, in 1991, a lone KI sheep farming couple, Larry and Bev Turner, revived the eucalyptus oil industry under the brand name Emu Ridge Eucalyptus Oil. There is a great video playing on loop in the visitor centre, lots of old artefacts from the early 1900s, and this really is yet another unique tourist destination in Kangaroo Island. Now, what about the food? Most of the makers we visited had a food option. Then there were multiple eateries, cafes, pubs and restaurants dotted around the different towns we visited. We stayed in Penishaw, which is where the ferry terminal is. 2 cafes are across the road from each other. Millie May's Pantry and the Fat Beagle. We alternated each day.
You always wonder where the cafes get their names from. But anyway.
The coffee was very good at both, and they had a good selection of food too.
Penishaw also has the Penishaw pub. The outdoor terraces, uninterrupted cliff-top views across to the Australian mainland. We had a drink there on a sunny afternoon looking out on the glistening water. What a spot.
We had never been to KO before, and we'd assumed there would be little to no supermarkets. Well, we got that one wrong. Not true. Penishaw, for example, had a very impressive IGA. I just don't think you need to stock up before you go to KO. There's plenty there.
No. So, how did we get around? We wanted to explore, but we were concerned about taking Vandy on unsealed and potentially corrugated roads. Thought about bikes, but distances are too vast, so we decided to hire a car for a few days. The cheapest car happened to be an electric vehicle, which we'd never driven. It was a Polestar 2, so we hired that and we loved it.
Yep.
We explored more than we would have in the motorhome. For instance, we couldn't have gone to Foss Winery in the motorhome. EV charging was no trouble. There's chargers on the island and we were able to recharge overnight.
So where did we stay? Obviously in the motorhome, but more specifically, we stayed at the Kangaroo Island Seafront Holiday Park, overlooking gorgeous Hog Bay. It's about a 5-minute walk to town of Penishaw. There were also powered sites and glamping sites and villas. The villas all had direct beach views.
And this Hog Bay is the beach where we had the kangaroo on the beach and the dolphins.
We saw kangaroos multiple times at Hog Bay.
Yeah, we did. That holiday park also had something unique, which was very bougie bathrooms. Instead of your usual communal toilet and shower block, they were like bathrooms, literally, where you open the door and inside the room was a toilet, hand basin and shower, and you could lock that. So you had your own, it wasn't an ensuite, but it was your own facility. So that was really cool. So let's move to a wrap up. Andrew, Kangaroo Island was a last minute plan. Are you glad you went?
Yeah, absolutely. I loved it, especially the wildlife. That was a surprise for me. I love the motorhome experience too. It took us less than an hour to cross from the mainland on the car ferry, but it felt like we'd wound the clock back 30 or 40 years as soon as we arrived. What about you, Leonie?
I loved it as well. The beaches were beautiful, the food and drink scene was surprising, really interesting, and the wildlife was unbelievable. Now, on our Tromso episode, I said that hand-feeding reindeer was living out my childhood fantasies, which it was, but seriously, patting koalas and having kangaroos eat out of my palm, I won't forget that day for a long, long time.
Totally. Kangaroo Island, not very far from Adelaide, South Australia, but a world away. Almost a land that time forgot, and the wildlife is out of this world. So that's a wrap for this episode. In our next episode, we are back to cruising. This time, we head to the magical south of France, where we spend 14 days cruising the Rhone and Saône rivers. We visit the Pope city of Avignon, the Roman city of Nîmes, Van Gogh's beautiful town of Arles, and the modern, vibrant French city of Lyon.
We have a pretty cool life. Kangaroo Island 1 minute, south of France the next. And we do all this aboard a new cruise line for us called A Rosa. So keep a lookout for that episode. Thanks for watching this episode, and bye for now.
See ya.